Introduction. How to Get Whatever You Want serves as a powerful wake-up call to readers, challenging them to re-evaluate how they view themselves, their desires, and the world around them. It begins by asserting a central, transformative idea that most people don't get what they want in life, not because they don't deserve it or because they aren't capable, but because they don't truly know what they want, or they lack the belief and strategy to pursue it with conviction. The author addresses the common condition of settling for less, attributing it to societal conditioning, self-doubt, fear of rejection, and limiting beliefs planted from early life experiences. He emphasizes that life doesn't reward the passive or the vague. It rewards those who are intentional, bold, and persistent. From this premise, the introduction transitions into the idea that desire is not enough. Wanting something doesn't mean you'll get it, but knowing exactly what you want with clarity and confidence is the first step toward making it real. The book's purpose, therefore, is to act as a guide for anyone who feels stuck, overlooked, or uncertain about how to move forward. It promises that by understanding key principles, such as self-belief, clarity of vision, assertive communication, and disciplined action, anyone can learn to direct their life instead of reacting to it. The author reinforces that getting what you want isn't about manipulation or luck. It's about aligning your thoughts, words, and actions in a way that naturally attracts and creates the results you desire. He introduces the reader to the idea that the mind plays a crucial role in shaping reality, and that many people unknowingly use this power against themselves by focusing on what they don't want, reinforcing fears, or hesitating to act due to imagined outcomes. Drawing from psychology, real-life success stories, and motivational principles, the introduction aims to make readers aware of how much power they already possess, even if they've never accessed it before. The tone is encouraging but direct, urging readers to take full responsibility for their lives, because only then can they take full control. Readers are invited to temporarily suspend disbelief and skepticism to try the methods described in the book, with the reassurance that success is not reserved for a special few, but available to anyone who learns the rules and commits to the process. The introduction also confronts the excuses that people use to justify their inaction, like lack of time, money, or connections, showing that many successful people started with even less but created their results through vision and persistence. It introduces the concept that clarity is a magnet for results. When you are precise about what you want and why you want it, you notice opportunities, people, and resources that align with your goals. It also touches on the importance of internal permission. Often people subconsciously deny themselves the right to want more, due to guilt, cultural programming, or fear of being judged, and the book seeks to break those mental chains. The author makes the case that the reader's life can dramatically change, not through wishful thinking, but by applying practical tools to shift mindset, behavior, and communication. In essence, the introduction lays the emotional and philosophical foundation for the book's deeper lessons. It positions the reader as the creator of their own experience, not a victim of circumstances, and offers the empowering idea that change begins the moment you decide to take control. Whether the reader seeks more success in business, better relationships, financial abundance, or personal peace, the book promises that the same core principles apply universally. The introduction closes by encouraging readers to approach the material with an open mind and a readiness to act, not just to read passively. It suggests that by the end of the book, if the lessons are sincerely applied, the reader will not only know how to get whatever they want, but they will have already started doing it. This opening serves both as a motivational push and a practical invitation. If you want change, you must be willing to ask, act, and believe in your power to receive. Chapter 1, Know What You Want, serves as the foundational principle upon which the entire book is built, emphasizing that clarity is not just a helpful tool for success, it is an absolute necessity. The author begins by addressing a common problem. Most people go through life with only a vague sense of what they want, relying on general desires like, I want to be happy, I want more money, or I want a better life, without ever sitting down to define what that actually means. This lack of clarity, the author argues, is one of the primary reasons people fail to achieve their goals. When your desires are unclear, your mind cannot focus, your actions cannot align, and your energy becomes scattered. Knowing exactly what you want gives your mind a target. It activates your brain's reticular activating system, RAS, which begins to filter opportunities, resources, and people that match your goals. The chapter challenges the reader to move beyond general aspirations and drill down into specifics. What does success look like to you? How much money do you want to earn? What kind of job or business would fulfill you? What kind of relationships do you want to build? Where do you want to live? What kind of lifestyle do you envision on a daily basis? Instead of asking vague questions, the book encourages the reader to answer with specificity and emotion. The author introduces the idea that clarity breeds confidence, and confidence breeds action. If you don't know what you want, how can you possibly know what to do next, who to talk to, what to ask for, or which opportunities are right for you? Ambiguity leads to hesitation, and hesitation kills momentum. Throughout the chapter, the author provides exercises to help the reader uncover their true desires, such as writing a personal vision statement, listing 50 things they want to achieve, or visualizing their perfect day in vivid detail. The purpose is to push readers past surface-level wants into the realm of deep, meaningful goals, the kind that spark passion and commitment. The chapter also touches on the importance of differentiating between what you truly want and what you think you should want based on societal expectations, peer pressure, or cultural norms. Many people chase goals that are not authentically theirs, seeking status, wealth, or approval to fill a void that can only be satisfied by pursuing their genuine calling. The author explains that authenticity is a magnet for success, and when you pursue what truly matters to you, not what impresses others, you tap into a higher level of energy, creativity, and perseverance. Another key theme is the idea that your desires are not random, they are signals pointing you toward your purpose. Suppressing or dismissing them because they seem unrealistic or too big is a form of self-betrayal. The chapter invites the reader to trust their intuition and give themselves permission to want more, want differently, and want boldly. The author also addresses the fear of choosing wrong, which often keeps people stuck in indecision. He argues that clarity is not about perfection, it's about direction. You can always adjust your goals as you grow, but you must start somewhere. Waiting until everything feels certain or safe is a trap that keeps you from making progress. The chapter uses real-life examples of successful people who began with a clear vision and stuck to it despite challenges, reinforcing the message that strong desires, when combined with clarity and persistence, create momentum that leads to results. There is also an exploration of how emotions play into the clarity process. When you attach strong emotional reasons to your goals, they become more powerful. You're not just aiming for a promotion, you want it because it will give you freedom, recognition, or the ability to support your family. Emotional fuel gives your goals urgency and meaning, which is what sustains you when motivation dips. The author encourages readers to not only identify what they want, but to write it down, speak it aloud, and revisit it daily. These actions create psychological and neurological commitment. He also points out that clarity removes resistance. When you know what you want and why, it becomes easier to say no to distractions, easier to stay focused, and easier to bounce back from setbacks. Clarity sharpens your intuition and gives you confidence when making decisions. Whether you're setting personal, financial, or relational goals, the process begins with naming them out loud and owning them fully. The chapter closes with a powerful message. Knowing what you want is not just a mental exercise, it's a declaration to yourself and the universe. It's the act of stepping into the driver's seat of your life and saying, I am ready, I am worthy, and I am willing to move toward my goals with purpose. By the end of the chapter, readers are not only convinced that they must know what they want to succeed, but they're also equipped with tools to start defining it clearly and confidently. This chapter sets the tone for the rest of the book by establishing clarity as the compass that guides all meaningful action and positions the reader to move forward with intention and power. Chapter 2, Believe You Deserve It, dives into the psychological and emotional core of achievement, explaining that even the clearest goals will remain out of reach if you don't believe you are worthy of receiving them, and this belief, or lack thereof, is often the hidden force determining whether people go after their dreams or sabotage them before they even begin. The author begins by confronting a painful truth. Many people subconsciously block their own success because deep down they don't think they deserve it. Whether due to childhood conditioning, traumatic experiences, societal programming, guilt, or a lifetime of playing small, this invisible barrier of low self-worth becomes the internal ceiling that caps every attempt at growth. Even when people say they want something, wealth, love, health, respect, they often carry conflicting beliefs beneath the surface. I'm not smart enough. I've made too many mistakes, people like me don't succeed, or I don't have what it takes. These beliefs shape behavior, limit risk-taking, and create a pattern of hesitation, self-sabotage, or settling. The chapter explains that believing you deserve good things isn't about arrogance or entitlement. It's about recognizing your inherent value as a human being and stepping into your full potential with confidence and self-respect. The author draws a line between external success and internal identity, arguing that no amount of money, status, or validation can compensate for a poor self-image. Lasting success can only emerge when your inner beliefs align with your outer goals. If your goals are big but your self-worth is low, you will unconsciously find ways to bring yourself back down to a level that feels familiar and safe. That's why the chapter insists that transformation begins within, not by chasing more but by realizing you already are enough and giving yourself permission to have more. The author shares compelling examples of people who broke free from cycles of mediocrity the moment they stopped questioning their worth and started affirming it daily. He emphasizes that deserving isn't something you earn, it's something you decide. This mindset shift is key. Waiting for external validation keeps you trapped, but when you decide you are enough, you begin to take actions that reflect that belief. You speak up, you take chances, you stop tolerating mistreatment, you set boundaries, you pursue opportunities, and you stop apologizing for wanting more. The chapter offers exercises to build self-worth, such as identifying and rewriting limiting beliefs, practicing self-affirmation, visualizing yourself already in possession of your goal, and doing deserving declarations where you say aloud with emotion, "I deserve to be happy, I deserve to be successful, I deserve to be loved," etc., until those statements start to feel natural. It encourages the reader to look at where feelings of unworthiness may have started, often in early criticism, rejection, failure, or comparison, and to recognize that those old stories are no longer valid. You can't let your past dictate your value, you must redefine it in the present, and the first step is to treat yourself with the kindness, respect, and belief you want from others. The author discusses how society often glorifies struggle and sacrifice, creating a subconscious narrative that says success must be hard-earned through suffering, but this can lead to people rejecting ease or joy when it shows up, feeling like they haven't earned it. He flips this notion, suggesting that you don't have to suffer to be worthy, you are worthy simply because you exist. The chapter also addresses the fear of surpassing others, whether it's family, friends, or cultural expectations, and how people sometimes shrink their ambitions to avoid feeling guilty or isolated. But holding back your light doesn't serve anyone, and the author encourages readers to give themselves permission to rise, knowing that they can be successful and stay compassionate, connected, and grounded. He reinforces that believing you deserve success is not selfish. It's essential because you can only help others, give generously, or lead effectively when you are operating from a full and empowered place. To solidify this mindset, the chapter urges readers to actively surround themselves with people, environments, and influences that reinforce their value rather than diminish it. Whether that means cutting ties with toxic individuals, seeking mentorship, or simply consuming positive, empowering content, the message is clear. Your self-belief must be protected and cultivated like a garden. You can't expect to thrive in soil that constantly tells you you're not enough. Toward the end of the chapter, the author makes a strong case for choosing belief even before you see evidence, explaining that faith in yourself often precedes success, not the other way around. He writes that most people wait for results to feel confident, but truly successful individuals create results by acting from confidence. They walk into the room like they belong, they take the job interview like it's already theirs, they show up to the opportunity already believing they bring value, and as a result they perform better, connect more deeply, and attract more of what they want. The chapter ends with a powerful reminder: the universe, or life itself, tends to give people what they believe they can have. When you believe you deserve more, you begin to think, speak, and behave in alignment with that belief, and that's when opportunities begin to open. The moment you stop questioning your worth and start expecting good things, you become magnetic to them. Thus, believing you deserve it is not just a mental shift, it is a transformational key that unlocks your capacity to receive, and without it, all effort becomes limited by internal resistance. This chapter lays the emotional groundwork for action by clearing the inner obstacles, inviting the reader to stop living a life of limitation and instead step fully into a new identity. One that is worthy, powerful, and ready to claim whatever they desire. Chapter 3, Ask Clearly and Boldly, centers on one of the most powerful yet underused principles of success: the ability to ask directly, confidently, and without hesitation for what you want in life, love, business, or any other area. The author begins by pointing out that while most people want more income, respect, support, opportunity, they often fail to ask for it, or when they do, their requests are vague, apologetic, or laced with self-doubt, which dramatically reduces the chances of getting a positive response. This chapter makes the case that life responds to clarity and conviction, and if you are unclear, hesitant, or indirect in what you ask for, you will likely get little or nothing in return. The act of asking is not just a request, it's a declaration of self-worth, intention, and belief. It tells the world and yourself that you are serious about your goals and ready to receive. The author challenges the reader to reflect on how many opportunities they've missed simply because they were afraid to speak up, worried about being judged, rejected, or seeming too much. This fear of asking, rooted in low confidence, past disappointments, or social conditioning, is what keeps many people stuck in mediocrity. The chapter introduces the idea that bold askers are not pushy or arrogant. They are simply clear, unapologetic, and respectful about what they need, and that boldness, when grounded in authenticity and clarity, is magnetic. The author illustrates how successful people make asking a habit, whether it's asking for a raise, asking for help, asking for introductions, or negotiating better terms, and how this one habit sets them apart from those who passively hope for good things to happen. He makes it clear that asking is not begging, it is a proactive leadership move, one that shows initiative and a willingness to own your desires. The chapter presents practical strategies for asking more effectively, starting with clarity. If you can't articulate exactly what you want, you can't expect others to give it to you. Readers are encouraged to practice writing and rehearsing their asks in specific language, removing vague phrases like, "I was wondering if maybe," and replacing them with direct statements like, "I'd like to request," "Here's what I need," or, "Can we agree on this?" The author breaks down how people often unconsciously minimize their power when they ask by over-explaining, seeking permission, or making themselves small to avoid discomfort, and he calls on readers to shift into a new mindset, one where asking is natural, necessary, and even generous, because clear communication actually helps others understand and respond more effectively. The chapter also explores the psychological block many people have around rejection, explaining that every no is not a personal attack but simply feedback or redirection. Bold askers understand that rejection is part of the process, and they don't internalize it as failure, they treat it as data. The author teaches the reader how to reframe rejection from something shameful into something constructive, even liberating. He shares stories of people who received breakthroughs, jobs, partnerships, life-changing deals, only because they dared to ask, often in situations where the odds seemed low. These stories serve as powerful reminders that asking opens doors that would otherwise stay closed, and that most people are far more willing to help, support, or say yes than we assume. The chapter also addresses the importance of timing, tone, and relationship building when asking. Boldness does not mean aggression. Instead, effective asking combines confidence with respect and empathy. When you ask from a place of value, where you're offering something meaningful in return, whether it's loyalty, skill, or energy, people respond positively. There's also a segment on asking the right people. Not every door is your door, and part of asking strategically is identifying who is able to say yes, who aligns with your values and goals, and who will respect your clarity. The chapter invites readers to make asking a daily habit, starting small and building muscle over time. Ask for help, feedback, referrals, upgrades, or even better treatment. Each small ask increases your comfort and rewires your nervous system to stop fearing rejection and start expecting progress. The author includes several exercises such as making a list of 10 things you've been afraid to ask for, then challenging yourself to make those requests within a week, even if it feels uncomfortable. This discomfort, he argues, is not a sign you're doing something wrong, it's evidence that you're expanding beyond your limits. He stresses that people who achieve extraordinary things aren't necessarily more talented, they're just more willing to ask for what others won't. Whether it's asking for mentorship, better prices, business opportunities, or emotional support, asking clearly and boldly turns invisible desires into visible conversations, and visible conversations into tangible results. The author also explains that asking applies not just to people but to life itself. Asking the universe, your subconscious mind, or your higher power to guide, support, and deliver the outcomes you seek. He connects this idea to manifestation, prayer, and intention setting, showing how asking anchors your desire in action and invites unseen forces to cooperate with your goal. The chapter closes with an empowering call to action. Make bold asking a new standard, not a rare exception. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment, be 100% ready, or have everything figured out before you ask. Start where you are, use what you have, and speak what you need into the world. If you stay silent, you stay stuck. If you ask with courage and clarity, you open the floodgates of possibility. In the end, the author reminds the reader that bold asks are often the difference between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one. Not because every ask will be granted, but because every bold ask teaches you to trust your voice, stand in your power, and take responsibility for creating the life you truly want. Chapter 4, Visualize Your Success, dives deep into the transformative power of mental imagery, showing that the mind is not just a passive observer but an active architect of reality, and that visualization, far from being a daydream or idle fantasy, is a strategic, scientific, and spiritual practice that trains your subconscious to align with the life you desire and deserve. The author begins by explaining that everything ever created, whether a skyscraper, a business empire, or a loving relationship, started first as an image in someone's mind, and that visualization is how you pre-live your dreams in your internal world before they manifest in your external one. He emphasizes that the subconscious mind cannot distinguish between vividly imagined experience and actual lived experience, which is why top athletes, performers, leaders, and entrepreneurs all use visualization as a tool to enhance confidence, performance, and emotional resilience. When you see your success clearly, consistently, and with emotion, your brain begins to lay down neural pathways that make it feel familiar, safe, and attainable, which eliminates the fear and doubt that so often sabotage action. The author challenges the reader to stop waiting for results before believing and instead start using the power of imagination to become mentally and emotionally congruent with their goals. He asserts that before you can live the life you want, you must see it, feel it, and believe it, and the clearer your vision, the more magnetic your energy becomes. Success doesn't just follow hard work, it follows mental alignment. He explains that visualization is not about escaping reality but reprogramming it, shifting your self-image from someone who hopes to someone who already is, and in doing so, attracting people, resources, and events that match your internal picture. The chapter provides structured techniques for effective visualization, starting with stillness. Find a quiet space, close your eyes, and breathe deeply to quiet the noise of everyday life. Then begin to paint the picture in your mind, not just what your success looks like but what it feels, smells, sounds, and tastes like. Imagine walking into your dream job, receiving the award, living in your ideal home, or impacting thousands with your message. Feel the pride, gratitude, joy, and calm confidence. Make it vivid. The more detail you add, the more your subconscious accepts the image as truth. The author recommends doing this daily, especially in the morning and evening when the mind is most receptive. He also stresses the emotional component. Emotion is the glue that binds the vision to your nervous system. You must not just see it but feel it real. Visualization works because it activates the reticular activating system, RAS, which acts as a mental filter, scanning your environment for information aligned with your focus. If your mind is constantly rehearsing success, your awareness begins to shift toward opportunities that bring that success closer. The author shares powerful stories of people who visualized their ideal life with intensity and consistency, despite external circumstances, and eventually brought those visions to life, often against all odds. He points out that what separates successful visualizers from wishful thinkers is consistency, emotional investment, and action. Visualization without action is just fantasy, but visualization paired with aligned effort becomes fuel for persistence, clarity, and resilience. The chapter also busts the myth that visualization is only for the spiritual or artistic. It's a proven performance tool used in psychology, cognitive science, and elite sports. Olympic athletes mentally rehearse their events before stepping onto the field. CEOs visualize successful negotiations before boardroom meetings. Authors envision book launches before typing a single chapter. Visualization is preparation. It is success rehearsed. The author offers an exercise called Future You, where you vividly imagine a conversation with your future self, the version of you who already achieved your dream, and listen to their advice, observe their energy, and absorb their belief in you. This emotional connection to a future version of yourself creates a bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Another technique shared is mental movie making, where you create a short film in your mind starring you as the confident, successful protagonist living the life you want. Watch it daily. Feel it fully. Rehearse the moves. Over time, this mental movie starts to feel more natural than your current limitations. The author also warns of visualizing in the negative. Worry, fear, and worst-case scenarios are also forms of visualization that create internal stress and attract the very outcomes you want to avoid. So, he encourages the reader to become the director of their mental cinema and consciously choose images that empower rather than diminish. If your mind is going to run movies anyway, make them inspiring ones. The chapter addresses resistance too. Many people struggle to visualize because they don't believe they're worthy of the vision. But visualization isn't about what you have right now, it's about what you're becoming. By seeing yourself differently, you begin to show up differently. You take bolder steps, hold better conversations, and make more empowered decisions. Visualization doesn't magically change the world overnight, but it changes you, and you are the most important variable in your results. The author wraps up the chapter by reaffirming that to get whatever you want, you must first see it with conviction and claim it in the theater of your mind. What you repeatedly rehearse, you eventually realize. Your imagination is not a weakness, it's your greatest asset. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. When you visualize your success daily, you condition yourself to expect success, and that expectation creates an inner compass that pulls you toward the people, ideas, and actions that make it real. The clearer and more emotionally charged your vision, the faster you'll move toward it, because your actions will naturally align with the image you're carrying. Visualization then is not just a feel-good exercise. It is a discipline, a skill, and a creative force that transforms your identity from the inside out and magnetizes your desired reality toward you. By visualizing your success with passion, precision, and persistence, you become the person who not only wants more, but receives it. Chapter 5, Take Persistent Action, is where all the visioning, belief-building, and internal work begins to materialize into real-world results, and the author wastes no time making it clear that while mindset and clarity are essential, nothing happens without consistent, focused, and relentless action. This chapter is a bold call to move, decisively, daily, and determinately, toward your goals, regardless of how ready you feel, how perfect your plan is, or whether conditions seem ideal, because the truth is that the universe responds not to wishful thinking but to action, and the key difference between those who succeed and those who merely hope lies in the willingness to do the work over and over again, especially when it gets hard, boring, or uncertain. The author begins by debunking the myth of instant success, emphasizing that nearly all great achievements are built not through a single breakthrough but through a long series of small, intentional, and sometimes invisible steps taken over time, and he compares this process to planting seeds, where much of the early growth happens underground, unseen, but is essential to the eventual harvest. Too many people give up before they see results because they assume slow progress means failure, but this chapter insists that persistent action is the bridge between the life you imagine and the life you create. The author stresses that persistence isn't about hustling non-stop or burning yourself out. It's about making your actions non-negotiable, about showing up even when you don't feel like it and treating your goals with the respect and discipline they deserve. He encourages readers to replace the word motivation with commitment, because motivation comes and goes, but commitment, anchored in a clear purpose, fuels momentum even through setbacks, distractions, and discouragement. The chapter shares real-life stories of individuals who succeeded not because they had superior talent or luck, but because they simply refused to quit. People who made one more call, sent one more email, tried one more version, stayed in the game just long enough to win. It's not about dramatic leaps but about steady strides. The author introduces the concept of minimum daily action, MDA, a simple but powerful technique where you commit to taking at least one meaningful action every single day toward your goal, no matter how small. These actions compound over time, building discipline, self-trust, and forward momentum. You don't need to see the entire staircase, you just need to keep climbing. The chapter outlines a three-part formula for persistent action: clarity, consistency, and course correction. First, you must know exactly what you're aiming for so your actions are intentional. Then, you must build the habit of consistency, daily, weekly, monthly rituals that lock in your progress. Finally, you must be willing to adjust your strategy when something isn't working, not by quitting but by refining, pivoting, and learning. The author also warns against perfectionism, which often paralyzes people into inaction, and urges readers to embrace imperfect action, to move forward even when they're uncertain, messy, or afraid. Action brings clarity while overthinking breeds delay. He writes that every step you take builds confidence, strengthens your identity as someone who follows through, and signals to the world and yourself that you are serious. He dives into the importance of tracking progress, not obsessively but intentionally, so you can measure, celebrate, and correct your course when needed. A strong emphasis is placed on managing energy, not just time, so that your actions are sustainable and fueled by inspiration rather than exhaustion. The chapter also explores how excuses, whether it's "I'm too busy," "I'm not ready," or "it's not the right time," are simply fears in disguise, and the author challenges readers to shift from an excuse-making mindset to a problem-solving one. Life will always present obstacles, but persistent action is about becoming someone who finds a way instead of waiting for a way to appear. The author shares that obstacles are not stop signs, they are tests of resolve, and each time you push through, you strengthen your character and capacity. He encourages readers to build rituals of momentum, such as morning routines, focused work blocks, or evening reflection practices, to keep their goals at the forefront of their daily life. He also discusses the role of accountability, whether it's a coach, a group, or a trusted partner, who can keep you honest and remind you of your commitments when your own discipline wavers. Importantly, the chapter recognizes that action isn't always exciting. Some days it's repetitive, discouraging, or thankless. But that's why persistence is so powerful. It builds a foundation of resilience that carries you through the emotional ups and downs. The author urges readers to celebrate progress often, no matter how small, because each step forward is a victory over inertia. He closes the chapter by affirming that action is how dreams take form, how ideas become income, how hope becomes habits, and how potential becomes power. He reminds the reader that the gap between wanting and having is closed not by time, luck, or talent, but by what you do consistently when no one is watching. If you want to get whatever you want, you must become a person who takes relentless action, who shows up, who adapts, and who refuses to let excuses or fear slow them down. Persistence, he writes, is the ultimate proof of belief, because when you act consistently even before you see results, you declare to yourself and the world that your goal matters, and that you are worthy of achieving it. By taking persistent action, you become unstoppable, not because you never fail but because you always get back up and keep going. That is the secret. That is the path. That is how you turn desire into destiny. Chapter 6, Overcome Rejection and Fear, is a powerful exploration of the emotional and psychological barriers that often stop people from ever asking, acting, or advancing toward their goals, and the author emphasizes that rejection and fear are not signs to stop, but signals to grow, vital parts of the process that every successful person must learn to navigate, not avoid. He opens by explaining that the fear of rejection is one of the deepest human fears, rooted in our ancient need for social acceptance and survival, and while it once served a purpose, in modern life it often becomes a false alarm that paralyzes potential and sabotages dreams. The author reveals that most people live in avoidance mode, avoiding hard conversations, bold requests, or vulnerable pursuits, not because they lack capability but because they are afraid to feel the sting of no, the discomfort of failure, or the vulnerability of not being accepted, and so they shrink their desires to avoid discomfort rather than expand their courage to embrace growth. But the truth, the author insists, is that rejection is not personal, it is directional. Every no is simply a redirection, a detour, or a necessary part of filtering who and what belongs in your life. He challenges readers to reframe rejection not as a dead end but as feedback, and to start seeing it as data, not judgment, and in doing so they liberate themselves from the emotional weight that stops most people cold. The chapter dives deep into the psychology of fear, explaining how fear thrives in imagination more than reality. What we think might happen is often far worse than what does, and he invites readers to become curious about their fears instead of ruled by them. Ask, what am I afraid of really? What story am I telling myself? Is this fear fact or fiction? Most often, fear is a liar disguised as logic. The author provides strategies to desensitize yourself to rejection, such as rejection therapy, a bold exercise where you intentionally seek out small rejections daily, ask for a discount, a favor, or an upgrade, not because you expect to get it but because you're training your nervous system to see that rejection isn't fatal, and that on the other side of every no is a stronger, freer you. He emphasizes that successful people aren't fearless, they just don't let fear make their decisions. They hear the inner doubts but move anyway, and it's this movement that breaks the fear loop. The more you face fear, the smaller it becomes. The more you run from it, the more power it gains. The chapter also touches on the biological side of fear, the fight or flight response, and how, through breathwork, mindfulness, and intentional action, you can soothe your body's reaction and shift back into a grounded, empowered state. The author encourages readers to write down their biggest fear related to their goal, then challenge it. Is it true? Has it ever really happened? And even if it did, what would I do next? This exercise dismantles the false narrative that fear is in control and reminds you that you always have the power to respond, pivot, and rise. He dives into the stories of great entrepreneurs, artists, and leaders who were told no dozens or even hundreds of times. Authors rejected by publishers, inventors laughed at by investors, performers booed off stage, yet they kept going because their vision was bigger than their fear. The author urges readers to adopt this mindset. Expect rejection but never accept it as the final answer. Every no gets you closer to your yes. Every door that closes forces you to find the right one. The key is to stop making rejection mean something about your worth and start seeing it as a natural part of success. The chapter also confronts the fear of criticism, reminding readers that judgment is inevitable if you're doing anything meaningful, and that trying to please everyone is a guaranteed path to mediocrity. Instead, the author says, aim to be authentic, not approved, because real confidence is built not in the absence of fear, but in the willingness to act with it still present. He reminds readers that courage is not the lack of fear, but the decision that something else, your dream, your future, your purpose, is more important than the fear. He encourages the reader to journal their fears, speak to them aloud, and even name them, to make them visible and less mysterious, because what is seen can be shifted. The chapter provides a powerful visualization technique. Imagine fear as a fog, not a wall. You can walk through fog. It may obscure your view, but it cannot stop your feet. This simple metaphor helps readers shift their perception of fear from a blocker to something passable. The author also introduces the concept of emotional resilience, the ability to recover quickly from rejection and continue forward with even more clarity, and explains that resilience is not a trait you're born with but a skill you build every time you choose not to give up. He offers simple habits to build this muscle, like daily gratitude, to stay grounded in what's working, reflection journaling to learn from what didn't, and affirmation rituals to rewire your self-talk. He closes the chapter by affirming that the life you want exists on the other side of rejection and fear, not because those things disappear but because you've become the kind of person who no longer bows to them. You speak up even if your voice shakes. You try again even after hearing no. You step forward even if you're unsure. And in doing so you become unstoppable, not because you're fearless but because you are faithful, to your dream, to your growth, and to your worth. The author ends with this empowering truth. Rejection and fear are not your enemies. They are your training ground, your teachers, your companions on the road to everything you've ever wanted. The moment you stop running from them and start working with them, you unlock a freedom, a power, and a momentum that few ever discover, and from that moment on, the world no longer gets to decide your limits. You do. Chapter 7, Build Powerful Relationships, emphasizes that no dream is achieved in isolation and that the fastest, most fulfilling path to success lies in the strength and quality of the connections you create along the way, because behind every opportunity, breakthrough, and transformation is a person. Someone who opens a door, shares wisdom, makes an introduction, or offers support. And the author insists that learning how to build and nurture powerful relationships is not just a social skill, but a life strategy that multiplies your potential. He opens the chapter by challenging the myth of the lone genius, or the self-made success, explaining that even the most brilliant minds and ambitious individuals rise higher through the networks they form, and that the people you surround yourself with either stretch your vision or shrink it, either fuel your momentum or subtly sabotage it. The author urges readers to become intentional about the company they keep, encouraging them to seek out relationships rooted in mutual respect, positive energy, shared values, and growth, rather than convenience or comfort. He asserts that your relationships are a mirror of your standards, what you tolerate, what you give, and what you believe you deserve, and that by elevating your expectations, you begin to attract higher quality connections who challenge and champion you. Building powerful relationships, the author explains, starts with authenticity, not pretending to be more, less, or different than you are, but showing up with openness, integrity, and a genuine desire to connect, contribute, and grow. He reminds readers that people are drawn not to perfection, but to presence, to those who listen, who care, who show up fully, and that the most magnetic people are those who make others feel seen, heard, and valued. He introduces the value-first mindset. Rather than approaching relationships with a "what can I get" mentality, powerful connectors ask, "What can I give?" Because generosity builds trust, and trust is the foundation of influence. Whether it's offering encouragement, sharing a resource, making a connection, or simply being fully present in conversation, every act of service deepens your relational equity and expands your impact. The author shares stories of individuals who skyrocketed their success simply by being the kind of person others want to help, humble, helpful, grateful, and consistent, and contrasts that with those who burn bridges by being transactional, entitled, or absent until they needed something. He emphasizes that powerful relationships are built in moments, not just milestones, through follow-up, appreciation, reliability, and kindness, and that consistency over time is more valuable than grand gestures. He offers a practical approach to relationship building called the Inner Circle Audit, where you list the 5 people you spend the most time with and ask, do they energize me or drain me? Do they challenge me or comfort me into mediocrity? Do they model the life I want or reinforce the one I'm trying to grow beyond? This exercise helps readers identify relationships to deepen, redesign, or release with compassion but clarity. The author stresses the importance of having a blend of peers, mentors, and ments in your network. Those who walk with you, those who guide you, and those you help lift, as each role teaches you something essential. He encourages readers to reach out boldly to those they admire, reminding them that many people are more accessible than we think, especially when approached with sincerity and a clear reason for connection. He also highlights the importance of proximity, putting yourself in rooms, communities, and environments where excellence is normalized and growth is contagious, because the energy of who you are around will shape the energy of who you become. The chapter also tackles the challenges of maintaining powerful relationships in a digital age where superficial likes and follows can create the illusion of connection without real depth. The author urges readers to go beyond screens, to pick up the phone, meet in person when possible, write handwritten notes, or simply show up in meaningful ways, and emphasizes that depth always beats breadth. 10 deep, trust-based relationships are more powerful than 1,000 shallow ones. He discusses the importance of emotional intelligence, being aware of your own emotions and attuned to the emotions of others, as a core skill in building relationships that last, and offers practical tools like active listening, asking thoughtful questions, mirroring language, and practicing empathy. The author encourages readers to be the kind of friend, partner, colleague, or collaborator they wish to attract, because relationships often reflect your level of self-awareness and maturity. He also explores the idea that not all relationships are meant to last forever. Some come for a reason or a season, and letting go of relationships that no longer align doesn't mean failure, it means growth. The chapter empowers readers to release guilt around outgrowing people and instead focus on gratitude for the role they played in their journey. The author reinforces that building powerful relationships is not about manipulation or networking in the traditional, often transactional sense. It's about meaningful connection, long-term thinking, and mutual growth. He introduces a tool called the Relationship Investment Calendar, where you intentionally schedule time each month to reconnect with important people, celebrate their wins, offer support, or express appreciation, because even the strongest connections weaken without effort, and attention is the currency of meaningful relationships. He also encourages readers to create and protect boundaries, because powerful relationships are not just about access, but about alignment. Saying no to toxic, one-sided, or draining dynamics is just as important as saying yes to empowering ones. The author closes this transformative chapter by affirming that people are the greatest resource you will ever have on the path to getting whatever you want, because people open doors, stretch visions, and hold you accountable to your greatness. To go fast, you may go alone, but to go far, you must go together. And in the end, it's not just about what you accomplish, but who you become and who you walk with along the way. When you build powerful relationships based on truth, trust, and contribution, success is no longer something you chase alone. It's something you co-create with others who believe in your vision as much as you do. Chapter 8, Stay Committed and Adapt, serves as the final cornerstone in the foundation of achieving anything you desire, and the author masterfully ties together the entire journey by emphasizing that lasting success does not belong to those who start fast, but to those who stay consistent, evolve when necessary, and never lose sight of the deeper reason behind their goal. He begins by clarifying that commitment is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice, a repeated choice to show up, to persist, to keep moving even when the results are slow or the path changes. Commitment is the glue that holds your vision in place when circumstances shake you, and the author insists that if you're only committed when it's easy, then you're not truly committed at all. He writes that real commitment is forged in discomfort. On the days when you're tired, when the excitement wears off, when others don't believe, or when results don't match the effort. And it is precisely in those moments that winners are separated from wishers. But staying committed doesn't mean being rigid. In fact, the most committed people are often the most flexible in how they reach their destination. And the author drives home that success in today's world isn't about sticking stubbornly to a fixed plan. It's about holding your vision firmly while being willing to change your strategy freely. He introduces the idea of adaptive persistence, a mindset where you stay loyal to the outcome but open to the process, and shows how history is filled with innovators, leaders, and creators who succeeded not because everything went according to plan, but because they knew when to pivot, when to let go, and when to reinvent their approach without abandoning their purpose. The author uses powerful examples of businesses, artists, and individuals who stayed in the game long enough to win by embracing change rather than resisting it. He emphasizes that change is not a threat to your dream, it is part of its unfolding. He challenges the reader to stop viewing setbacks, detours, or even failures as evidence to quit. Instead, see them as opportunities to reassess, recalibrate, and return stronger. The chapter explores how to build a feedback loop into your process. Act, reflect on results, listen to your intuition and outside feedback, then adjust without shame or hesitation. Too often, people quit because their ego is attached to a specific method, and they interpret adjustment as failure, but the author makes it clear adaptation is not a sign of weakness, it is a strategy of the wise. He also speaks directly to the emotional side of commitment, explaining that sustained effort is emotionally demanding, especially when you're not yet seeing the fruits of your labor. That's why staying connected to your why, your deeper reason for wanting what you want, is essential. Your why becomes your fuel when motivation fades. It becomes the compass when the road gets unclear. Without a strong why, commitment becomes exhausting. With one, it becomes purposeful. The author encourages readers to write and revisit their why regularly, to turn it into a visual mantra, a screensaver, or a daily journal prompt that keeps their emotional energy aligned with their goals. He introduces a practical tool called the Commitment Inventory, where you list your top 3 long-term goals and then honestly track your daily and weekly actions to see if they align with those priorities. Most people say they're committed, but their calendar and habits say otherwise. This simple exercise helps create integrity between intention and action. He also dives into the topic of resilience and explains that adaptability is a core component of resilience. Being resilient doesn't mean you never fall. It means you bounce back faster, stronger, and wiser because you've trained yourself to view adversity as a teacher, not a terminator. One of the key takeaways of the chapter is this: the goal is not perfection, it's progress. And progress is rarely linear. You will have weeks where you leap forward and others where you stumble, pause, or even regress. The committed individual doesn't base their effort on mood or outcome. They base it on identity. You don't act because it's easy, you act because you've decided this is who you are. The author urges readers to shift from goal-based motivation to identity-based commitment. Don't just want to write a book, become a writer. Don't just want to get fit, become someone who never misses a workout. Identity is stickier than goals, and when your identity changes, your behavior follows naturally. He also speaks about avoiding burnout, reminding readers that commitment does not mean obsession or self-neglect. It means playing the long game, working hard, yes, but also wisely, with rest, renewal, and self-compassion built into the journey. He offers strategies like quarterly reviews, recovery days, and seasonal sprints to maintain high performance without depletion. In terms of adaptation, the author shares the value of remaining a student, staying curious, reading broadly, listening to mentors, testing new ideas, and treating every obstacle as a lesson. Adaptable people are not emotionally attached to one way, they're emotionally committed to the outcome. This agility gives them a distinct advantage in a world that is constantly shifting. He urges readers to be willing to kill their darlings, those parts of the plan that no longer serve, even if they were once brilliant, because loyalty to your growth must outweigh loyalty to your ego. The chapter closes with a stirring call to courage, to stay in the arena when others give up, to re-choose your dream every single morning, to recommit through the failures, and to remember that the combination of consistency and adaptability is what creates unstoppable momentum. When you stay committed and adapt wisely, you become like water, soft yet strong, flowing yet unbreakable, persistent enough to carve through stone. And that, the author says, is the ultimate superpower, not blind discipline but dynamic devotion to becoming who you were meant to be. In the end, success goes to those who are loyal to their vision, humble enough to evolve, and courageous enough to keep walking even when the map has changed. Stay committed, stay flexible, and keep going, because the future you want is already waiting, and the only thing standing between you and it is your willingness to remain in motion no matter what. Conclusion. The conclusion of How to Get Whatever You Want serves not just as a closing statement, but as a final call to action, an emotional, powerful reminder that everything you've ever dreamed of achieving, becoming, or experiencing is within reach, not because life hands out guarantees, but because you now hold the tools, mindset, and clarity to create your outcomes from the inside out, one bold step at a time. The author begins by affirming a core truth that has echoed throughout the entire book. You are not a passive participant in your own life, waiting for permission or luck. You are the creator, the asker, the doer, and the decider, and the moment you fully embrace that truth, you reclaim your power in ways that shift your trajectory forever. Every chapter up to this point, knowing what you want, believing you deserve it, asking with clarity, visualizing success, taking persistent action, overcoming fear, building meaningful relationships, and staying committed while adapting, was designed to strip away limiting beliefs, expand your capacity, and remind you that success is not something out there to chase, but something within you to unlock and activate. The conclusion revisits each principle not to repeat, but to reinforce, showing how they work in harmony, how clarity fuels belief, belief strengthens your voice, bold asking opens doors, visualization programs your brain, action creates momentum, fear becomes fuel, people become partners, and commitment seals the deal. The author passionately stresses that this journey is not theoretical, it's real and it's available to you now, not once everything is perfect or when fear disappears or when you feel ready, but now in this very moment as you are. He warns against the trap of waiting, for confidence, for signs, for conditions to align, because waiting is the quiet enemy of progress. The book's purpose, he reminds us, was never just to inspire you for a few days, but to permanently upgrade how you see yourself, how you show up, and how you pursue what matters. He emphasizes that what separates those who get what they want from those who only wish for it isn't luck, intelligence, or timing. It's the consistent choice to live intentionally, to ask more boldly, and to rise after every stumble with a deeper sense of direction. The author challenges the reader to stop playing small, to stop shrinking their dreams to fit their comfort zone, and instead to stretch themselves toward the vision they once thought was too big, because the truth is, the dream never asked you to be perfect. It only asked you to be committed. He explains that from this point forward, you must live as if your desires matter, because they do, not in a selfish, ego-driven way but in a purpose-aligned, soul-level kind of way. Your desires are clues, he says, not to greed or fantasy, but to potential, calling, and contribution. When you want more, it's not because you're broken, it's because you're ready to grow. The author reminds readers that this book has always been about transformation. Not just getting things but becoming someone powerful enough to lead their life on purpose. Getting what you want isn't about manipulation, force, or control, it's about alignment, courage, and clarity. And the more you live from that place, the more doors will open, people will respond, and opportunities will align. He closes with an unforgettable truth. Everything changes the moment you decide. Not the moment circumstances change, but the moment you internally shift from waiting to creating, from doubting to believing, from hesitating to asking. Because when you know what you want, believe you're worthy, speak it into the world, visualize it daily, act with persistence, rise above fear, connect with the right people, and adapt along the way, there is nothing that can stop you, not for long. The conclusion ends not with a finish line, but an invitation to begin, to take what you've read and live it, to stop being the audience to other people's dreams and start becoming the main character of your own, to wake up each day and ask, what do I want? What will I do about it? Who must I become to receive it? And how boldly will I ask, act, and adapt until I do? Because in the end, the title of this book isn't a promise someone else fulfills, it's a challenge you rise to meet. And if you live its principles with courage, honesty, and perseverance, you won't just get whatever you want, you'll become someone unstoppable, fulfilled, and fully alive in the process.